All right, you may be seated. Come on in, ladies and gentlemen, make yourself comfortable. Come on in, ladies and gentlemen, make yourself comfortable. All right, Lord, brother, you may be seated. You have the witness come back up. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being on time. And so you're still under oath. You may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Brenner, when we left, you were just referencing that you, in 2010, you got a new job?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, was that job still with General Electric?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, was it going to be still in the Atlanta office?
Yes, it was.
Okay, and where was it going to be? Was it in the same building where you were previously?
It was. I think it was down one floor.
Okay. Let's go back to the time that you worked together with Hemy Neuman. Okay, are you familiar with what his job was?
Yes, ma'am. He was the quality leader for engineering and energy services.
Okay, and how did that relate to your job?
I was the quality leader for energy services total, and so all the quality leaders that were either in different businesses or different functions kind of dotted line reported to me, meaning that they weren't my direct reports, but we worked together on implementing quality improvement plans and processes throughout the organization, throughout the business.
Okay. And so in that capacity, did you have contact with the defendant on a fairly regular basis?
I did.
Okay. About how often did you see him in, let's say, a given week if you were both in the office?
Several times a week. My office was right next to his boss, Eric Gephardt's office, so he often interacted with Eric, and I was right next door. So I saw Hemy Neuman from, 5 times a week.
Okay. Did you talk to him frequently or during those 5 times during the week?
It would depend if I had or we had anything to talk about.
Okay.
I think we did, yes.
Did you two correspond through email?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Now, did you have any regularly scheduled meetings with him in his job and your job?
For my job, we would have biweekly staff meetings with our quality organization, and we would also have different quality types of meetings throughout the course of the week, or quarterly or monthly.
Okay. And those meetings, you said they were biweekly meetings?
They varied. Some were
Okay.
biweekly from a staff meeting perspective. Some were on a weekly basis with regards to certain initiatives we were working in energy. And then some were on a twice annual basis, which we called QMRs, which are quality management reviews.
Okay. Okay. So with regards to seeing him, at any point did you ever see anything that appeared, in your opinion, odd about him?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Did he ever appear in any way to not be thinking logically?
No, ma'am.
In any of your conversations, emails, or interactions with him, did he ever seem in any way delusional?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Based on what you saw of the defendant's work, did you have an opportunity to see his actual work product as well as just interacting with him in the office?
I did.
Okay. And was his work product, was it organized and structured?
Very well structured, very well organized, and very good results.
Okay. Was there anything about his work product at any point during the, I think you said 3 years that you worked with him?
Approximately 3 years.
Approximately 3 years. Was there anything in that period of time that made you think that there was some problem or some issue going on with him based on the work product that he was putting out?
No, ma'am.
Now, did you at any point spend any time with the defendant outside of the office?
Very occasionally, very rarely. A couple times at maybe holiday events or larger leadership events. And then one time we did have a personal off-site meeting.
Okay. Can you tell the jury a little bit about the personal off-site meeting that you had?
We went to a local bar by work around the corner from the facility we were at. We met there after work around 5 o'clock, and I thought the conversation was going to be about the job opportunity. I had just left my quality leader role,
okay.
And Hemy was potentially a candidate for that role, so I thought it was about that.
Okay. Do you recall when that was?
October 16th, 17th, 18th, somewhere around there of 2010.
Okay. And you said you met near the facility. Are you talking near GE?
Yes, off of the 4200 Wildwood Parkway facility.
Okay. So now when you went there, did you all have dinner or just drinks or just hang out? What
It
did
was
you do?
just one beer.
Okay. Okay. Tell me a little bit about what the interaction was between the two of you there.
The conversation was more personal than it was professional. I don't think there was very much professional conversation at all. At that time, Hemy was going through a separation. He had moved out from his wife. They were having some marital problems. I had just recently gone through a divorce, had older kids as well, so we talked a little bit about that.
Now, you said you had older kids as well?
Yes.
Give me an idea what age bracket we're talking about with the defendant's kids at that time.
He had 2 kids in college at Georgia Tech, I think the twins, and then he had 1 in high school.
Okay. Did he ever mention having 2 very young children?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So that evening, I think you said around 5 o'clock, when you two were meeting at this local pub, did he ever reference that he had or had fathered or was caring for 2 very young children?
No, ma'am.
And you indicated that you recently had, at that time, gone through your own divorce?
I had.
Okay.
Yes.
Did it seem as if the defendant, was he looking for advice or guidance? What was...
I think the conversation was just about the general difficulties of going through divorce, having children, the stress on the kids, stress financially, and just going through the process of divorce.
Okay. Did he indicate to you at any point during that conversation whether or not he was involved with someone other than his wife?
Yes, ma'am, you did.
Okay. Can you tell the jury a little bit about how that came about?
He just brought the subject that he had met somebody and that it was going very well. They seemed to have hit it off very well. And one of the things he talked about, though, was that she was married and did have 2 small children and was struggling with what to do with the situation.
Okay. And struggling as in, did he elaborate on that?
Just struggling with regards to whether she could leave her husband and what it would do to the children.
And did the defendant give you any indication as to whether or not she seemed inclined to leave her husband?
I wouldn't say inclined, but definitely struggling with the decision on what to do.
Okay. Did he tell you where he had met her or how he had met her?
No, ma'am, he did not.
Okay. Did he indicate to you that their relationship was an intimate one?
Yes, he did.
Okay. During the course of that conversation, did he ever, at that point, once he talked about her and her children, did he ever at that point indicate to you that he felt like he was the father of her children?
No, ma'am, he did not.
Did he ever indicate to you that he felt like he was responsible or needed to take care of her children in any way?
No.
Okay. At any point during that conversation, did he seem to lose touch with reality?
No, ma'am.
Okay. At any point during that conversation, did he seem irrational in any way?
No.
Okay. After you talked to him and he started talking about these personal things, what was your impression of what was going on with him?
That he was going through a divorce and I think struggling, like many of us do, through the process of that, but that he had found somebody, he was happy, seemed to believe the relationship was going in a good direction, but faced with the fact that the person he was involved with was struggling with what to do next as far as that relationship.
Okay. At any point, did he seem depressed?
No.
Okay. At any point, did he give you any indication or did you see any signs that he was in any way suicidal?
No.
At any point during this conversation, did he indicate to you whether or not he had ever attempted suicide?
No, ma'am.
Did he ever indicate to you during this conversation, as he's telling you all these personal things, that an angel had come to him in any way?
He did not.
About how long would you say you spoke to him that evening back in October 2010?
I'd say an hour, hour and a half.
Okay. And was the majority of the conversation about this topic, or were there other topics involved?
It was almost inclusively or exclusively tied to the divorce and the person that he had met.
After that conversation, how did you leave the conversation that night? How did you end the conversation?
I honestly don't think I could remember how we left it. I did send him a follow-up email that said if he ever needed to talk or follow up or have anything he wanted to discuss, that I'd be open to it.
Okay. Now, I want to talk a little bit about your role there at GE with regards to, can you explain to the jurors what is an ombudsman?
An ombudsman is it's a process and a person that if an employee has a concern that they would like to raise with regards to a compliance issue or an employee issue that they may have with a manager, that it's an avenue that they could file a concern, and that concern could be either anonymous or non-anonymous, and there's different categories of cases. So if you're an employee and you have something that maybe you're not comfortable raising to your manager, you can file it through the ombuds process, and that would sometimes come to me.
Okay. And at any point when you were in that position, did you ever receive any complaints or concerns regarding the defendant or his behavior?
No, ma'am.
And how long were you in that position as an ombudsman?
2 years.
Now, you mentioned earlier, I think, in the beginning that you had QMR, the quality management reviews.
Yes.
Okay, could you describe for the jurors a little bit about what were those reviews?
Okay. The quality management review is a process that an organization follows to meet certain requirements of ISO 9000. It's an international standard around quality. And so there's certain inputs that you have during the review. You talk about certain topics specific to quality, and then there's certain things that you have follow-ups on related to quality. So it's a quality-focused meeting.
Okay, and was the defendant involved in those meetings?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And at any point during those meetings, did you notice anything odd or different about his behavior?
No, ma'am.
Now, do each of the employees in his position have performance reviews?
They do.
Okay.
They did.
They did at the time?
Did.
Okay.
They did.
At that time, do you know of whether or not the defendant had a performance review in the 2009-2010 timeframe?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what are the different possibilities of what the outcome could be of those reviews? The different, grade levels of those reviews.
So there are 5 categories that an employee could fall into. One being unsatisfactory, one being development needed, one being meets requirements, or I think it's meets requirements. The next category being excellent, which is the second highest from the top. And then the last category, which is role model, which is the top category.
Okay. And what was the defendant's rating in his performance review?
In that year, he was rated excellent.
And is that something that is based on one person's interpretation of his performance, or is it multiple people?
It's multiple people. It was both Eric Gray, who was his direct manager, along with my input as the quality leader for the business.
Okay. Right. At any point during your interactions with the defendant, did you, in both work, I think you said you met him at maybe some holiday parties, at the meeting after work, at any review performance reviews, any type of meeting that you had with him, did you ever see him appear to be out of touch with reality?
No, ma'am.
That's all the questions I have, Jan.
You may cross-examine if you wish.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
In talking about the performance reviews, you were a part of that review process for Mr. Neuman?
I was.
Okay. And you said that he received an excellent on his review in, 2009, 2010?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And that's one down from the top, correct?
That is correct.
And as a part of that review process, do you give the employees information about what they can do to improve?
In a direct line report, yes, ma'am, I would. In this process, because Eric was his direct line manager, Eric would have given the information as to areas to improve upon.
Okay. And would you have been privy to previous performance reviews for Mr. Newman?
I believe I would have.
Okay, but you don't remember what
I
those
don't
were?
know,
Okay.
ma'am, I do not.
And I think before the lunch break, you said that you worked with Hemy for about 3 years. correct?
Approximately, yes.
Okay. And your relationship with him, as you've testified, was a professional one, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Other than social events through work, you didn't hang out with him after work on the weekends, anything like that, correct?
No, ma'am.
And so this meeting that you had outside of work in October of 2010, whose idea was that?
I believe it was Hemy's idea.
Okay. And you didn't think anything of it because you were leaving your position, right?
That's correct.
And it's a position that he potentially would have been in line for, correct?
That's correct.
And so you thought that the meeting was going to be about discussing that, right?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And I think your testimony was that it really wasn't about that at all. It was all personal, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And you hadn't had that kind of personal conversation with him before, had you?
No, ma'am, I had not.
So that was an unusual conversation for you and Hemy Neuman to have.
It was not a normal conversation, no.
When he told you about the woman that he was seeing, he didn't tell you who it was, did he?
No, ma'am, he did not.
And he didn't tell you that she was an employee of GE.
No, he did not.
And he told you that she had young children, but he didn't. Did he tell you how many children she had?
2.
And in this conversation, and he was talking to you about the stressors of going through the divorce and the breakup, right?
Yes.
He expressed concern for his children, correct?
He did.
And how this was going to affect them.
Yes, ma'am.
And he told you he was falling in love with this woman that he was having a relationship with?
He did.
And I think you said that he seemed happy, right?
Yes.
And he told you that they had been intimate, right?
Yes.
In fact, he said that they had they would have sex numerous times in one encounter, correct?
He did.
And was this conversation, would you characterize it as uncomfortable for you when you started talking about the intimate relations he was having?
It wasn't. He was gentleman about it. He wasn't rude. It was not lewd or rude in any way.
Would you say that this conversation about his relationship with this other woman and the personal nature of the conversation caught you off guard?
Yes. Yes.
When he was discussing the split with his wife and he was talking about the effect that this might have on his children, would you describe his mood during that part of the conversation as somber?
I think I used that word in my last testimony, yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any redirect?
Hey, Ron.
Lawyers, may this witness be released and excused from his subpoena?
No objection.
Any objection?
No objection.
Thank you,
Thank you, sir.
Have a good day. Call your next witness.
Your Honor, at this time, the state calls Rainier Van Ede.
You may.
Go ahead and have a seat. Go ahead and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear affirm the testimony you shall give this court should be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Raise your hand. Please state, spell your name for the record.
My name is Reinier van Eden. First name Reinier, R-E-I-N-I-E-R. Last name Van Ede, V-A-N, and then separately E-D-E.
Where are you employed, sir?
I'm employed by General Electric Company as an HR manager, human resource manager.
Okay, and how long have you been with General Electric?
12 years.
And when did you start working for the GE here in Atlanta?
In March 2009.
Okay. And could you explain to the jurors what you said you're an HR manager? Can you explain to them a little bit about what your job entails?
So I'm involved in all the people aspects of the organization, so whether it's organizational or on individual level, making sure that people are in the right place at the right time and being hired in the organization and grow in the organization.
Okay, okay. Were you familiar, did you work with Hemy Neuman?
I did.
Okay, and how long had you known the defendant back in 2010?
Well, since March 2009.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you didn't know him prior to coming to the Atlanta office?
No.
Okay. And what was his position there?
He was the quality and operations manager.
Okay, and as quality and operations manager, did he have a particular division that he worked for?
Yeah, he supported the engineering division.
Okay. And do you know, did he have a team of people that worked with him?
He did.
Okay, do you know how many people, did he supervise anyone?
It was about 18 to 20 people at that time.
And with regards to how did your position interact with his position as supervising 20 people in the engineering unit?
So I was the HR manager for that engineering unit, so he supported it on the quality and operations side, I supported on the HR side.
Okay. And as HR manager, are you aware when the defendant was hired by GE?
Yes, I am.
When did he start working for GE?
He started working for GE January 1st in 2000.
Okay. Now, was your office located near the defendant's office?
We were on the same floor, yes.
Okay. Can you explain a little bit, to your understanding, what was the defendant's position? You said he was quality and operations. Can you explain to the jury a little bit what that entailed?
Yeah, there's actually two positions, more or less, two heads, in the sense of quality is focusing on all the quality aspects in the function, making sure that we're adhering to the policies and procedures. And if there's any gaps, he'll make sure that there's actions taken and things to solve those gaps. And on the operations side, he's focusing on making sure that the whole department had a clear operations plan, budget-wise, goals-wise, and that we're making sure that we're staying within the budget, we're staying within the goals that are set for the organization.
Okay. Now, with regards to the team of people that you talked about earlier in the engineering department, were most of the people that he supervised engineers?
A good part would probably have an engineering background.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
professional people anyway.
Okay. And with regards to the operations portions of it, you talked about he had to stay within budget?
Yeah,
Okay. Was he able to do that?
he was.
Was he good at staying within budget?
He was.
Okay. Did he have any issues with overspending or anything like that within the budget that he had?
No.
Okay. He also indicated that he was in charge of, in operations, in charge of goals for that portion of the team?
Well, goals in general for the whole engineering division. He made sure that we had clear what were the deliverables for the year or for the longer term future as well.
Okay. Did he set up appropriate goals for the engineering division?
He did.
Okay. And did he make sure that his staff or the people that worked for him followed through and met those goals?
He did. He made sure there were processes in place to make sure that we measured progress and that we...
Okay. Would the defendant's position be considered a high-level position there?
It would be a senior manager level position.
Okay. And are you aware of what his educational background was?
I am, yes.
And could you tell the jurors what that is?
So he graduated from Georgia Tech with an aerospace engineering degree, and he did an MBA in England, in the UK. I believe it was Bradford University.
Okay. Now, when you say MBA, you're referring to a Master's in Business Administration?
Correct.
Okay. So he had not just a 4-year college degree, but an advanced degree?
Correct.
Okay. Did he have, with regards to, I know we talked a little bit about goals, was he in charge of anything related to compliance?
He was, yeah, as part of the quality.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did he meet all the compliance expectations?
He did. And
Were
if he
you
didn't,
ever-
he would, and if
I'm
he
sorry?
didn't, if he didn't, he would take actions to, because there were audits done, and he has to make sure that we were compliant. These audits would prove if there were any gaps, and if there were gaps, he would be held responsible to make sure we closed the
Okay.
gaps.
So with regards to those audits that were done, if something was found to not be falling into compliance, was it his job to make sure that the team then did come into compliance with
Yes.
that issue? Okay. And did he do that?
He did.
Did he do it well?
He did, yeah, well, yeah.
Okay. Were you ever involved in any meetings with him, meaning more than just the two of you meeting?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Did he have to put together any kind of presentations or run any meetings involving multiple people?
He did,
Can you
yes.
tell the jurors a little bit about that?
Could be different settings, whether we had to present up to higher management what our plans were or how we were doing, tracking towards our plans. He would put the story together, and he would typically either introduce it and then hand it over to others or wrap it up at some stage, but he would be playing a facilitating role there or leading the discussion.
Okay. And during the times that he was conducting those meetings, did he organized?
He was organized.
Okay. Did he appear to be rational?
He was.
Did he at any point appear to be confused or not understanding what was going on?
I've not noticed that.
Okay. And did his presentations in these meetings make sense?
He did.
Okay. Did he ever display any odd behavior in any of those meetings?
I've not seen it.
Did you say you've not seen that?
I've not seen it,
Okay.
no.
Did his job there, managing those 20 people, overseeing both quality and operations, did his job require logical thinking?
It does.
Okay. Did his job involve working with other teams and their team members?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Did his job involve the necessity of being organized?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
And you mentioned that he worked within a budget.
Yes.
Okay. Now, did he have any input as to what that budget was, or was that something that came from higher up?
He would influence in trying to propose a budget for the year, and he would then kind of present it to the upper management to get approval for it and buy it for the budget.
Okay. And when he did that with regards to the budgets, had those proposals, was there anything outlandish or ridiculous about the budgets that he was proposing?
There wasn't.
Okay. Were they all within what you would expect someone in a senior management position over the engineering division? Were they what you would expect to come from that type of person?
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you know Andrea Sneiderman?
I do.
And how do you know her?
She was employed by GE as well.
Okay. And do you know in what position she worked for GE?
She was in a role which we call QMS lead position, which is a quality management systems leader position for the software part of the engineering group.
Okay. And did she work directly for, who did she work directly for?
She worked for Mr. Neumann.
Okay. And did Hemy Neuman have any participation in her hiring decision?
Yes, he did.
Okay. And do you know if he was the one that made the final decision or if it was
He
somebody
did.
else?
Yes, he did.
He did. Okay. So he's the one that hired her.
Correct.
Okay. And she worked directly under him?
Correct.
Okay. Do you know when she was hired?
She was hired April 12th, 2010.
And do you know, can you explain to the jurors a little bit about what her role was specifically within that team?
Sure. So, getting back to the quality part of the role that Hemy had, she was part of that quality focus in the organization. So she had to make sure that, the processes and the procedures were put in place, that there were control points put in place, how we were doing on our customer satisfaction, how we were doing on the different audits that we have done, and how they were progressing and filling those gaps.
Okay. Now, did her position require any travel?
It did.
Okay. Can you explain, does GE tell an employee, let's say in Andrea Sneiderman's position, would GE tell her she has to go to a location or to a site, or is that something that she would decide?
It could be mutual. I mean, it could be self-directed. It could also be advised and guided.
Okay. Do you know if Hemy, if the defendant's position required him to travel?
Yes, it did.
Okay. Did his position require that he travel with Andrea Sneiderman?
Not require. I mean, there could be a circumstance where it made sense for him to go with her.
And when Did your position require that you travel?
I did. Yes.
Okay. And did you routinely travel with employees who worked under you?
Not routinely. I have traveled with employees, but not frequently.
So would you say on occasion you
On
have?
occasion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, could you explain how often did you come in contact with Hemy Neuman?
Probably a few times a week.
Okay, and were those encounters just seeing him in the hallway, or were those typically going to be some kind of work-related meeting?
Both.
Okay. Did you have any regularly scheduled meetings that you had with him?
I did.
Okay,
Yes.
and how often were those?
Either in the kind of a group setting or one-on-one, do you mean? Or do you...
Let's talk about in a group setting.
In a group setting, they would probably be bi-weekly.
Bi-weekly?
Yes.
Okay. And how about a one-on-one meeting with him?
Probably monthly.
Okay. At any of those meetings during the time that you worked with Hemy Neuman, did you notice anything odd about his behavior?
I did not.
Did you notice anything that made him seem irrational?
I did not see that.
Did you notice anything at any point where he appeared to be delusional?
I have not seen that.
Did you notice any point where he seemed out of touch with reality?
No, I didn't.
In each of the meetings, in each of your dealings with him, did he appear to be focused?
He did.
Did he appear to be following through on whatever task or whatever he was working on at that point?
He did, yes.
Now, did you two have to ever collaborate on any projects together?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
Okay. Specifically, I want to go back to the week of when the defendant murdered Rusty Sneiderman. Do you recall that week, the week during November 18th, 2010?
I do.
Did you have a meeting, were you present at a meeting on November 16th, 2010 with the defendant?
We did have a meeting,
Okay.
yeah.
Can you tell the jurors a little bit about what was the purpose of that meeting?
In one of the audits that was taking place, that had taken place previously, a quality audit, it came out that there was a gap something we needed to cover, which was related to an HR field about competencies and making sure that people had the right competencies and they had the right goals to do the job.
Okay. And was that something that was the competencies and the goals within the engineering department?
Yes, correct,
Okay.
yeah.
And so what exactly were you and the defendant working on to correct or to address the issues that were raised in that audit?
Yeah, so it was found through this quality audit, and of course it impacts an HR area. So I was involved with my team to see how we could solve the issue that was that came up.
Okay. And how was the defendant during that meeting?
Like normal.
Normal?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Was there anything odd about his behavior?
I didn't see anything on.
Okay. Now, did you all have a specific deadline for making everything become compliant with the audit?
Well, Mr. Newman and I had a different view on it. He was looking at an earlier deadline than I was. I was looking more at the end of the year. He was looking to do it as soon as possible.
Okay. And did that strike you in any way as odd, or was that
No,
normal?
I mean, he wanted to get it checked off and move on, and I wanted to make sure that we could do it, making sure that everybody who had to comply with it was ready to comply with it.
Was there anything irrational about him wanting to have that deadline sooner than you expected that deadline to be?
I didn't see that as irrational. No.
Okay. It's just a difference of opinion?
Yeah.
Now, during the course of that meeting, did the defendant run that meeting, or did you run that meeting?
We were both the sponsors of the meeting, so our teams were working on it, and he and I were in there to make sure we kind of came to agreement on how to go forward with it.
Okay. And with his goal that he wanted the deadline to be sooner rather than later, was he good at following through on those types of things and making that happen?
He did.
Now, during that meeting, was Andrea Sneiderman there?
She was.
Okay. And did you have any conversation with her?
I did, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Did you notice anything about her?
I did, and I actually made a remark. She looked somewhat tanned, so I asked her, like, hey, have you been on vacation? And she mentioned that she had been on a cruise with her husband.
Okay. And to your knowledge, had you not, during the time that she was on this cruise with her husband, did you personally note her absence from work at that time, or was it that you wouldn't have really come across her during that time?
I wouldn't have come across her, yeah. She was in a different building.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you say she was in a different building. Was that still there on the GE site?
Yeah, it's a different GE building that we lease as well.
Okay. Were you aware of any plans that the defendant made with Andrea Sneiderman to work on that particular project to make things compliant that night on November 16th?
I was not aware of that.
Anything about the defendant's behavior during that meeting that struck you in any way as abnormal for him?
No, I didn't see anything. No.
If you had, how would you describe the defendant, the Hemy Neuman that you knew at GE?
I would describe him as a intelligent leader in the organization. He was smart, making the right decisions for within his role. He was a capable leader and had a good knowledge of both quality and operations.
And was that, all those things that you just described, intelligent, a good leader, making the right decisions, was that all evident in his work product?
Yes.
Okay. And was that evident in his relations with others and other teams?
Yes, it was.
At any point during the time that you worked with the defendant, did you ever notice any signs of depression?
I did not.
Did you ever notice any signs where his productivity fell off?
I did not see
Did
it.
you ever notice any time where his product or his work output was below average or below par?
I did not see it.
Did you ever see anything other than high expectations from him and then follow through from him?
Sir, can you repeat?
Did you ever see anything from him besides setting high goals and then
Right.
following through with those high goals?
No, I didn't see anything else. No.
Okay. Anything that ever made you question his behavior or his mental health?
I did not. No, I didn't see it.
Now I want to jump to November 18th, 2010. The day that the defendant shot Rusty Sneiderman, how did you find out that Rusty Sneiderman had been shot?
Mr. Newman came into my office to inform me that Andrew had to leave, that he was involved.
Okay. Did you, how was he when he came into your office?
He appeared to be concerned about the situation.
Did he tell you what had happened?
No more details than what I just said, in the
Okay.
sense like he was involved in a...
Okay. And was his behavior in any way inappropriate for what you would expect from a supervisor telling you about someone that they supervise's tragic situation?
I didn't see or notice something that triggered me to think differently.
Did you have any other contact with him that day after he came and told you about Andrea Sneiderman's husband?
Yes, we did.
Okay, can you tell the jury a little bit about that?
In particular, we talked about what communication to go out to the team about her absence for the rest of the day or the week, and how we were going to handle that part.
Okay.
And then also next steps later on about, I forgot the name of the Jewish tradition, but the wake as well, and how we were going to support them as well.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the communication going out to the rest of the team. Do you know, how did the communication that Andrea Sneiderman would not be there for a certain period of time, how did that go out to the rest of the team?
I don't recall the specifics, but I remember slowing it down because I wanted to make sure that we had a chance to connect with her and hear before we said anything. It was not in our position, in my view, to make a statement. So I just wanted to hold off before we communicated anything.
Okay. Okay. Now, did you have any other after that? Did you have any other communication with him that day?
I don't remember.
Okay. At any point, did he indicate to you whether or not he was going to be doing anything with Andrea Sneiderman's computer?
He may have said, but I'm not 100% sure that he was going to bring it back to her.
Now, you mentioned earlier about the wake and the funeral. Did you attend the funeral?
I did attend the funeral.
Okay. And did the defendant attend the funeral?
He did.
Okay. When you were at Rusty Sneiderman's funeral, what was the defendant's demeanor like there?
same concern as most people, or at least he appeared to have the same kind of concern and worries about the situation.
Was there any indication that he, were you able to see any type of emotion on his
Yes.
face or in his...
I saw him cry at some stage.
Did you see Andrea Sneiderman there at Rusty Sneiderman's
I
funeral?
did.
Okay. And did you see the defendant interact with Andrea Sneiderman there at the funeral?
He tried to, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. He tried to make eye contact, yeah, with Andrea.
Did you see him in any way participate in the funeral services?
Well, there's a part where people are invited to put dirt on the coffin, and both he and I participated in that.
Okay. And how did you go about doing that? Putting dirt on Rusty Sneiderman's coffin? Is it with your hand, with a shovel?
With a
How did
shovel.
A shovel.
Yeah.
Okay. And the defendant, he participated in that?
He did.
At any point during that funeral, did you see the defendant's demeanor in any way seem inappropriate for someone at a funeral?
Well, the eye contact that he was looking to make at that point was, to me, inappropriate. And he made eye contact later on when we formed kind of a human corridor. I was standing close to him as well, and he was, in my opinion, looking to make eye contact again, which to me appeared inappropriate.
Okay. With regards to, you said you saw him crying?
I believe I saw him crying, yes.
Okay. Okay. And did you see him have any contact with Rusty Sneiderman's family members?
I don't remember.
Okay. Do you see Hemy Neuman here in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Could you describe what he's wearing and point him out for the jurors?
He's wearing glasses, having a beard, yellow shirt.
Okay. What color shirt is he wearing?
Yellow shirt.
Or if there,
Is it yellow?
is he wearing a jacket or no jacket?
No jacket.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your Honor, the
Yeah,
record
yeah.
would reflect that he has identified the defendant.
Record may so reflect.
Mr. Van Eed, is that how the defendant looked when you worked with him?
He didn't wear a beard at that point.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have, Your Honor.
Mr. Lang, you may cross-examine if you wish. Thank you. You're welcome.
Mr. Van Eed, you mentioned that one of Hemy's responsibilities was to stay within budget, correct?
Correct.
What kind of budgets are we talking about in dollars?
I don't know the exact size, but it's multi-million-dollar budget.
Okay. And you said that he worked with a team, correct?
Correct.
And he directly supervised 18 to 20 people,
Correct.
right? And so he's working with these people on these budgets and with his compliance.
Correct.
He's also answerable to other folks, correct?
He is.
He had supervisors and bosses that he
Yeah.
had to answer
He
to.
did.
And you talked a little bit about that when you talked about the audits, right?
Correct.
And the meetings that took place throughout the course of business on a regular basis,
Right.
right? And so if he wasn't staying on budget, that's something that would be caught pretty quickly,
It would
correct?
be, yes.
And that's something that he would know as a part of his job, right?
Correct.
And you said he was senior management,
Yeah. it would be-
considered senior
yeah,
management?
yeah.
Okay. In his roles in both quality and operations, you said that his work required organization, correct?
Correct.
Required him to be task-oriented?
Correct.
And he was, in fact, task-oriented.
He was.
When Hemy hired Andrea Sneiderman, did you have any indication that he knew her prior to hiring her?
He didn't know her before then, to my opinion.
And it was not unusual that they would travel together, correct?
It could happen, yes.
Now, you talked about collaborating together and specifically a meeting on September 16th. You said there was a gap, if I understand it correctly, there was a gap.
November, I think, 16th.
November 16th, sorry. You said that there was a gap that needed to be addressed, correct? And your view of the deadline was the end of the year, right?
Correct.
And his was much sooner,
Yeah,
correct?
the sooner the better, yeah.
And in fact, you thought he was moving too fast on this project,
Yes.
correct? In working with Mr. Neuman, was there ever a time where you went to his home to work after hours?
I did not.
Did he ever come to your home to work after hours?
I did not.
Is that a practice that you had with any other employee?
We would not have that.
Did you learn of Hemy working after hours at Andrea Sneiderman's home at some point?
Later, yes.
Okay. So it was after the fact that you learned of that?
Yes.
Would you describe Hemy Neuman as a generally reserved person?
To some extent, yes.
He's not somebody that walked around the office spilling his guts about personal things, correct?
Correct.
When Hemy told you about the shooting, and he told you that something had happened with Andrea, and he told you he was going to take her computer, you didn't think anything of that, did you?
No, I didn't think anything of that.
As Andrea's supervisor, it was partially his responsibility to relay the information about what had happened to the team, correct?
Correct.
And he would be a person who would be informing his team and Andrea's team about funeral arrangements, correct?
Correct.
And helping to organize the people on their team in whatever, whether it's sending flowers or food or whatever, correct?
Yes, or HR, or the manager or HR would typically organize that.
Okay. But it wouldn't be unusual for the team leader to do that.
Correct.
And Hemy Neuman is Jewish, correct? Mm-hmm. And Andrea Sneiderman is Jewish, correct?
Correct.
And so Hemy was familiar with the things that go on with a Jewish funeral, correct?
Correct.
And familiar with the Shiva, correct?
Correct.
And you didn't go to the Shiva, did you?
I did not.
Okay. And are you and Hemy the only ones who put dirt on the coffin?
No, there was a whole line of people that did it,
Other people from GE?
including other people from GE.
Thank you.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. With regards to the audit that happened and the deadline, you wanted a later deadline than the defendant wanted. Did this audit, and it's showing this gap that was in there in the audit, did that make the team look bad in any way?
I mean, you want to fill a gap always, right? You want to cover that if there's a defect, but it could have been done by the end of the year, in my opinion,
Okay.
without making the team look bad.
Did the defendant express concerns that it could have made the team look bad?
He wanted to get it done as soon as possible. My rationale was I want to make sure that because so many people had to adhere to it, that it was had quite a ripple effect. That I want to make sure we took our time and gave people that were recently integrated in our business the chance to get up to speed on these new changes that were coming down to them.
Okay. With regards to the other people who were at the funeral who put dirt on Rusty Sneiderman's coffin, on his grave, when the defendant participated in that, did any of the other people who did that, did they follow his lead in that, or did they go ahead and do it first?
There were people ahead of us as well, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So from GE, were there other people who went before the defendant, or did he kind
I
of
don't
do it and
remember
everyone
if
else
there
kind
were.
of followed his lead?
I don't remember if he was the first. He may have been.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
And the recross? No, Judge. Lawyers, may this witness be released and excuse Mr. Peanut if you want to remain in subpoena.
No objection, Your Honor. He can be released. No objection.
You're free to go ahead. Okay.
Thank you.
Call your next witness.
Your Honor, at this time, the defense and the state have a series of stipulations. Can I present those?
You may.
Thank you, Your Honor. In lieu of calling witnesses to substantiate the authenticity of documents, the state proposes to introduce State's Exhibit Number 1 as a DVD, and with it, State's Exhibits Number 1A, 1B, and 1C. Those are 3 volumes that are the printout of what is Defense Exhibit Number 1, the phone records of Hemy Neuman, from April 2010 through January 2011.
And Mr. Lane, does the defense join that stipulation?
Yes, Judge.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, as far as the lawyers have entered into a stipulation and the court has accepted, you would deem these items as evidence for the purpose of this particular proceeding. You may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Similarly, the state would now move to admit State's Exhibit Number 2. State's Exhibit Number 2 consists of a DVD. It is the phone records of Andrea Sneiderman through the relevant time period, April 2010 through January 2011. State's Exhibits 2A, 2B, and 2C are simply the volumes of printed out material that's on State's Exhibit Number 2.
Any objection as to State's Exhibit Number 2, A, B, and C?
No, Judge.
All right, and it will be considered as a stipulation. That's what I've heard based on both lawyers. And you would consider this as evidence also based upon the agreement of the lawyers and stipulation. You may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. In lieu of calling custodians of records, the state by stipulation now offers State's Exhibit Number 3. State's Exhibit Number 3 consists of a DVD of Rusty Sneiderman's phone records from April 2010 through November 18, 2010. With it is State's Exhibits 3A and 3B, the printed out records that are contained on State's Exhibit Number 3.
Mr. Lane, do you accept that stipulation also?
Yes, Judge.
And there's no objection of State's Exhibit Number 3 and 3A and 3B will be admitted as a stipulated part of the evidence also. You may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. The final phone stipulation is State's Exhibit Number 4. State's Exhibit Number 4, the phone records of an individual named Jan, Jan, Da Silva, Dasilva. State's Exhibit Number 4 is a DVD. The printed out records are 4A, 4B, and 4C.
Any objection?
No objection.
All right. 4, the DVD CD, and 4 will be admitted, and also 4A, 4B, and 4C are admitted without objection. They'll be considered as stipulated evidence also.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Are there any more stipulated pieces of evidence at this point in time?
There are, Your Honor.
You may.
Thank you. State's Exhibit Number 5 is a CD consisting of the GE emails subpoenaed by the state and responded to by the company GE. The subpoena was for documents that were responsive to emails either to or from Hemy Neuman and Andrea Sneiderman for the relevant time period of April 2010 through January 2011. State's Exhibit 5A, 5B, and 5C are merely those records printed out.
Mr. Land, any objection?
No objection.
All right. The DVD 5 and the corresponding transcript of 5A, 5B, and 5C will be also admitted into evidence and deemed as a stipulation based upon the proffer by the state and the defense. You may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. And finally, State's Exhibit Number 6 is offered at this time. State's Exhibit Number 6 is a DVD that consists of the Yahoo email account of Andrea Sneiderman, the Yahoo email account of Hemy Neuman, and the Gmail email account of Hemy Neuman from April 2010 through January 2011. State's Exhibits A, B, C, and D are those records printed out.
Any objection, Mr. Lane?
No objection.
And number 6, which is the DVD and or CD, and 6A, 6B, 6C, and 6D will be admitted as a stipulation, which means will be deemed as evidence for the purpose of this proceeding, and it's agreed to by both lawyers on both sides.
Thank you.
Proceed.
Your Honor, prior to calling the next witness, the state has a written stipulation to read. It is signed by the defense and the state. We file it in open court at this time with the court's permission. After publishing to the jury, I'd just like to publish the stipulation.
You may, but come up for a minute, lawyers, before you do that. All right, you may proceed and continue. And you can stand at the podium if you want to present that at this point in time.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, in lieu of calling certain witnesses, the state and the defense have agreed that certain facts are stipulated or agreed to. Those facts are, number one, Andrea Sneiderman, while staying at the Hampton Inn in Longmont, Colorado, from July 18th to July 23rd, 2010, called the front desk to request that her room be changed to one with a larger bed and to change the reservation from one person to two. Number two, defendant Hemy Neuman called the hotel's numbers 303-772-2554 on July 17th, 2010, and spoke with the front desk clerk. He asked the clerk to purchase flowers and chocolates with his own money, which was to be reimbursed by Mr. Neuman, and leave Ms. Sneiderman a note. The clerk thought the request unusual, though the hotel staff had received unusual requests from guests in the past. Number three, Hemy Neuman called the hotel again on July 18th, 2010, and made the same request of two other staff members. The staff described Mr. Neuman as persistent. Number four, the staff did not purchase the chocolates and flowers as requested. Mr. Neuman asked the staff to read a note which said, "For the sweetest and most beautiful woman in the world, peaceful sleep knowing that you are always in my dreams, to Mrs. Sneiderman." One staff member did deliver a message to Ms. Sneiderman from Mr. Neuman telling her that Hemy says he loves you. Number five, Andrea Sneiderman's reaction to the note, according to hotel staff, was she responded bashfully, she blushed, she sort of looked down at the ground and looked back at me and nodded her acknowledgement of the note. That concludes the stipulation, Your Honor.
All right, Lord, that stipulation has been presented to you in lieu of calling witnesses, and that is an agreement between the state of Georgia and the defense. So those witnesses will not have to be called, but they will be deemed as evidence as read. Is that your understanding? Again, from the state?
It is, Your Honor.
From the defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, so noted. You may continue.
Thank you. The state next calls Kathleen Go to the stand.
You may.
Go ahead and have a seat, folks. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear affirm the testimony you shall give this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so you got it?
Yes, sir.
Please state and spell your name for the record.
Kathleen Goff, Gough.
All right. Ms. Goff, can you tell the jurors, please, where do you work right now?
I work for GE.
And GE is General Electric?
Correct.
How long have you worked for GE?
This is 18 years.
All right. What are your current duties and responsibilities? What do you do for them now?
My current duties are I still do investigations, whether they be HR or legal investigations.
Okay, and you do that internally for GE?
Correct.
Okay. And was that your role back in November 2010 through January, February 2011?
Correct.
All right. Do you know the defendant in this case, Hemy Neuman, personally?
I do not.
All right. Do you know another GE employee named Andrea Sneiderman?
No.
What, if anything, then, were you asked to do in relation to this case?
At the time that this happened, I was asked to collect computer records, whether they be email or travel records, badging access, computer usage, anything IT related.
Okay, let me stop you there for 1 second. Sure. You talked a lot about different kind of records that GE keeps.
Correct.
What kind of records related to travel does GE keep for its employees who travel on business?
They maintain the travel reservation records as well as the employee expense records.
All right, so somebody's going to be reimbursed from GE. They have to submit some documents to get that
Correct.
That money back? Okay.
Correct.
And what about emails? What kind of emails does GE keep for its employees?
GE doesn't keep any. It's up to the employee to maintain their mailbox. So
Let me ask that a different way
Sure.
then, if I could interrupt you. Does everybody who works for GE have a GE email account,
Yes.
something personal related to their work?
yes, they do.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, what I do is try to give you routine breaks with the assistant deputy here. This will be in the neighborhood of 10 minutes, so that you have an opportunity to refresh yourselves. and Deputy Garrett, just have them back in the jury box in 9 minutes.
All rise. You may be seated. What?